Good evening, everyone. Welcome to all viewers who have tuned into the Kalinga Literary Festival. I'm here with Ambi Parameswaran. Ambi has recently written an exceedingly interesting book, Spring, Bouncing Back from Rejection. And I'm going to be talking to Ambi about this book and about other things. But let me begin by introducing him, telling you a little bit about his background before we get into his latest book. Ambi is a corporate veteran. He has worked in industry for many, many years. He worked in a number of world-reputed organizations like Boots, Rediffusion Advertising, and FCB Ulka. After retiring, if I can actually call his kind of thing retiring, he is now a consultant, a writer, a columnist, as well as teaching in several business institutions. A couple of months ago, his latest book was released, Spring, like I said, Spring, Bouncing Back from Rejection. And that's going to be the focus of our discussion today, right? So the most obvious question first, Spring, Bouncing Back from Rejection. That's the subtitle of the book. So why did you actually begin to think about this topic and decide to write a book on this topic? Ambi.
Okay, so first of all, thank you, Kalinga Literary Festival, for hosting this talk, and thank you, Karthik, for being here and for your warm introduction. As you said, I have put in probably 40 years in my work life, and a large part of it was in marketing, and a significant amount of time was in advertising. And I've been writing for a long time now. I've been writing columns for more than 20, 25 years. And in fact, my first book was published in the year 2000. It was a book of advertising cases. And Spring is really my 10th book. And you may say, look, you've been a guy in marketing, you've been a guy in advertising. So what makes you an expert on writing about rejection? So there is a backstory of this, what triggered this book. So let me take you back to, I think it was September, October 2018. I published a book called Sponge, Leadership Lessons I Learned from My Clients, which Karthik, you are aware of, and you performed the duties on that book as well. So I was doing my book tour, it looks long time back, and I must have made at least 30 different trips for doing talks on that book. So I was in Bhopal, and I was speaking at this very nice university called Jagran Lake University. Bhopal has lakes, and this is known as the Jagran Lake University. And I delivered a talk on Sponge Leadership Lesson, and the talk was for about 45 minutes or so. And the idea was after that we will take questions for about 10-15 minutes. So the talk got over, and there was a nice, kind of clapping and all that, and the question answer started. And then someone in the front row asked a question, and then second row and the third row, and then there was a big audience, almost 500 people. And at the back of the auditorium, there was one girl putting up a hand, and finally the mic gets hijacked. As you know, in all these things, mics get grabbed. So the mic finally reached her, and she got up and she said, look, you seem to have had a good career, and you had good education, and you got to work with some very reputed business leaders. Now we are all young people here, and we are about to graduate, and we don't know how our future will be, and we are scared about being rejected. So she almost asked me, what do you know about rejection? Almost to say that you had a very privileged past. So you probably never faced rejection. So what can you tell us about rejection? That's our biggest worry. So that, stopped me in my tracks. And I thought for a bit, and then I gave an answer, and I spoke for almost 10 minutes about how basic gist was, however successful a person may be today, he or she has uh, faced rejection, right? So uh, everyone has faced rejection, and I have faced rejection. I've faced multiple rejections, and I spoke about the interviews where I got rejected. Then I spoke about some clients where I pitched and I got rejected. I spoke about some new business where I got rejected. I spoke about some ideas which I presented to clients where I got rejected. And at the end, I don't know what happened in the 10-minute talk. At the end, there was a standing ovation. I mean, there was, my regular talk happened, they didn't give me a standing ovation. But after this, 10-minute talk on rejection, there was a standing ovation. And I was a little surprised. And I felt that I kind of locked it at the back of my mind, saying this rejection seems to be a very hot topic. And a month later, I was at IIM Calcutta, and I was receiving the Distinguished Alumnus Award. And again, I repeated a part of that, what I told about rejection in IIM. I'm Calcutta. My alma mater, IIM Calcutta, was giving me the award. So I was there to give a talk. And in IIM Cal again, there was a very, very, very warm response, right? Very warm response to my talk. And that got me thinking that, look, there is something here. Maybe the young people today are really under stress in terms of facing rejection. So maybe I should think of writing a book on this topic. I'm not an expert, right? I'm basically an MBA, and even my PhD is not on rejection. It was on consumer behavior, and I am not a big expert on psychology or sociology, but I've faced rejection. I've faced multiple rejections in my life, and therefore I said, look, maybe there is something here I should deep dive into. I should research this. So once I got the idea okayed by my literary agent Anish Chandy, and then there was a ready publisher interested in writing the book, I started thinking back, and I said, look, what are the rejection stories I could write about? And I realized that maybe I'll write about 30, 40, 20 chapters, and I said that not more than 3 or 4 chapters will be from my life. So I will try and pull stuff from other people's lives. So I must have read close to 10 books. I then read numerous articles on the subject, including some from psychology, like Psychology Today. Those of you interested in, there's a fabulous website. There are a lot of lovely articles in Psychology Today. So I read all that, and I put that together. So in the book, there are 20 chapters, and there are probably 60 different stories in the book. 6 of them are from my life, and the balance 50 odd stories are from other people, from different walks of life. So that's a backstory. I'm technically not qualified, but I've faced rejection in my own work life. I've faced rejection in interviews. I faced rejection in applying, getting new clients. I faced rejection when I presented ideas to clients. And in the last 5 years, I've also been working as a executive coach. I mentor companies. I work as an executive coach to senior executives, and I see them facing rejection, and I've helped them to overcome rejection. So that's a backstory, Karthik. So that's how the book was born.
Okay, simple question, or maybe complicated question. Do you remember the first time you got rejected? How did you feel? What happened?
Well, I don't know whether it's the first time, but let me tell about my interview rejection, which kind of was
Right. A
pretty.
very significant rejection.
Yeah,
Let me
yeah.
put it
So
that way.
first time rejection could be not being picked
Many things.
by the
Yeah.
cricket team, by
True.
the cricket captain in my school, and I would become the water boy. I never got to play, etc. But that was a part and parcel of life. Yeah. So, but let me tell the interview stories. So cut to I think it was March 1977. I was in the final year of BTech in IIT Madras, chemical engineering, and somehow my credit point average was not great, so I was not planning to apply and go abroad, and I also was not very sure that I would be a very good chemical engineering researcher. So I said either I'll take up a job or I will try for doing an MBA. So March 1977, I took my cycle, went to the placement office. In the placement office, people can't believe it today that in 1977 there was no queue, there was no big placement season. It was not as if 100 companies were coming to IIT and chasing these boys, literally giving them an offer letter. No, nothing like that was happening. So saw that Hindustan Lever was coming. So I got my biodata typed in a manual typewriter, went and gave it, and the next day Hindustan Lever came. Out of the class of 40 chemical engineers, I think 20 or 15 of us had applied. So I got, we were all called for the interview, and I walked in. First question they asked, I gave an answer which turned out to be completely stupid. So it was like a typical first ball, you got clean bowled.
Clean bold.
So completely clean bowled, right? So I walked out. I knew I had muffed up, and I went back to my room and I opened my uh, chemical engineering unit operations book, and the question's answer was there on page 3, literally. So I was that ill prepared. I was so badly prepared for that interview, and I didn't deserve that job. Fortunately for me, I didn't get into Hindustan Lever. I got into IIM Calcutta's. I went to IIM Cal, and I really, uh, started enjoying management studies. So I used to read a lot, and I actually did well in academics. I was uh, one of the top students in my class. And so now cut to March 1978. And again, people can't believe it that it was not as if hundreds of companies were lining up. This is summer, there's a summer internship. So companies are coming for summer internship. So I went and saw that Hindustan Lever was coming. So I prepared my nice CV. I gave it. And this time I was reasonably confident, Karthik, because, IIT mein, I got bold, clean bold, first ball, clean bold. But here I said, yeah, now I'm going, I'm wearing hat, I'm wearing helmet, I'm wearing bat, gloves, fully prepared. I had, virtually top my class. So I knew marketing, all the subjects they were taught. Uh, so I was pretty good. So there were 50 people applying out of the class of 150 applied to Hindustan Lever summer internship. First round, second round, third round. Third round, there were 2 people. Two of us were shortlisted finally for the final question. And the final question was asked. It was a tricky question. I will not tell the uh, viewers which question it is. They can read the book and find out what is the question they asked. And I gave a very logical answer to that question. And I thought I had done well. And I walked out, and my friend who walked in after me was asked the same question. And he gave a very interesting, very different answer. And, they called us back after 15, 20 minutes and said, sorry, we're going with so and so. We're not giving you the internship. So I was blown,
A real
I,
bouncer that was.
yeah, I was blown because, that was an unfair wall. It's like, Chehal being called to bowl, and yesterday what happened, and India wins, and Australia is now wondering, why did they allow this to happen? The batsman Jadeja scored runs, and then they replace him with a bowler who takes 3 wickets. So you can't win this, man. You can't win this. So that night I didn't sleep. I was really sleepless. And look, this is real mess, man. What am I going to do? And that was, and then of course in the book I've described what I did, how I kind of explored what we call redirection, to explore a new direction to go into. And I discovered advertising, and then, of course, I built my career in advertising. So, I mean, the advice to young people who are watching this is that, there is too much pressure on today the young people in engineering colleges and business schools, saying you have to have one dream company, you should prepare, your 3, 4, 5 years to get into that dream company, and then, come what may, try and get into the dream company. But life is not like that. You may not get into a dream company, so you got to have a plan B and maybe a plan C, which is what I've talked about after this experience, that I had a plan B. In fact, I did not have a plan B. I had to sit back and think and say, look, I've been rejected, and what do I do now? And then I developed a plan B and a plan C, right? So
now, clearly, I mean, if you, as a product of the world famous IIT system and the IIM system, has faced rejection, I mean, it stands to reason that everyone is going to face it. One would think that the IIT graduate or the IIM graduate will have an easier ride. But what's emerging from your story is that that's not true. You face the short end of the stick too. And one of the things that you talk about in your book is what you call a rejection processing system, right? And you have some very interesting ideas about how one can deal with rejection. Now, without getting into too many details, so that people should read the book and find out about those details, can you take us through your rejection processing system? Maybe some of the subtler nuances of it. Tell us a little bit about it.
okay, so let me tell a story, a different story, and I'll tell a story from my own life. So I'm mentoring a company called Saral Designs. They make it's started by Suhani Mohan from IIT Bombay and Karthik Mehta of IIT Madras. They came together to design a very economical machine which makes high quality sanitary pads, right? And and they had made a prototype. They got some angel investors to give them some money, and they set up a prototype machine. And then they started going and pitching to VCs. And they went through 1, 2, 3, 4. And as you know, Karthik, I've written in the book, they went through 100 VC presentations. Every VC will say, make some changes, make this assumption, make this spreadsheet, but no check, no money. They were literally hand to mouth. They got some angels to give some money, and they were going hand to mouth, but they were hitting a wall. Fortunately for them, they got invited to a competition in California, and there a lady saw their presentation, called them aside, and said, "Look, you're doing wrong." So Suhani and Karthik told me the story. So they said, "Look, what are we doing wrong?" And the ladies made them sit down, give them a cup of coffee, and said, "Look, you are an impact investing company, which means you cannot be evaluated like a standard company. Your products, which are low priced sanitary pads, distributed manufacturing system, is going to impact people's lives. You're going to create employment. You're going to change lives of young girls. So you have to change your entire pitch deck into an impact investing opportunity." And so when they came back to India and they said, "Look, let's change it." And then they started searching who are the impact investing VCs available in India. And the next 2 months, they pitched to 10 of them, and they got 4 of them to give them a check, right? Giving them money. So they said, "Look, it was fortunate that we found that person who advised us." But thinking back, that should have been part of their rejection processing system. So rejection processing system is to find someone outside your immediate comfort to give you serious advice, right? On what you should do or what you should not do or what you're doing wrong. So that's a story from a young startup entrepreneur. So let me talk about something from my own. This was I think 97, and we had, we got invited. FCB got invited to pitch for the Hyundai car account, right? So Hyundai was a big car company, and they were coming to India, and they had shortlisted 5 agencies to come and pitch. So 5 of us, worked on the pitch and took all the material, went to Chennai to present to Hyundai, and we presented we finished the presentation, and while walking out, I told my colleagues, look, this did not go well. And they said, look, it went well. What do you say? So I don't think it went well. Okay, I don't think we know how to play this game. We've been playing what they say tennis ball cricket, and this is real cricket with hard ball. So we don't know this game, guys. Let's not fool ourselves, right? As expected, we didn't get the account, and then we said, look, how do we process this rejection? So we got into a huddle, and we said, look, what is an automobile account? How complex is it to sell an automobile? What do automobile customers look for? How is advertising going to be different to an automobile customer? We didn't have enough experience in the category, but even our parent company did not have, that time we had become FCB Ulka, but FCB did not have any big auto companies. But we said,
experience.
Yeah, so they didn't. So we had to actually sit and do research, do reading, understand what it takes to be a successful car advertising agency. And we knew it was important because globally, car advertising is a big category. If you look at the top 10 categories of advertisers, usually number 1 is automobiles, number 2 is retail, number 3 is electronics, so it's that. So it's a big category. So we started reading up, and then we knew more clients will come. And then fortunately for us, Tata Motors unveiled their new car in the auto show, and then we met them soon after that, and we did not ask for the business. We said, well, can you participate in a case study competition with us? We said, you don't need to give us any information. We will write a little case on your new car. We'll get these schools to present, and you have to come for the final presentation and give away the prize, which any client is very happy to do that. They came. We were actually very impressed with the quality of presentation, the case we had written, at the end of which the marketing head said, look, we are going to call for an agency pitch. Would you be interested? I said, yeah, of course. So we got in on the inside loop on that. 14 agencies presented for that account. 14 agencies presented for the account, right? And then I think we presented first, and then 14 agencies presented over a period of 6 weeks. And I was told we were the best. After our presentation, none of the other presentations could come up to our level of what commitment we had shown. We had done analysis of car advertising India, abroad. It was a 4-hour presentation. We had multiple campaigns, ideas to share. We even presented some conjoint analysis. We presented, direct marketing ideas. So it was complete. I mean, they were blown away, and we got the business. So the interesting thing was that the agency which got the Hyundai account got the account in 97, but in 2004, Hyundai brought their own Korean agency into India, and this agency which got the Hyundai account lost the account. For us, fortunately, we got the Tata Motors business in 1998, and the account continued with FCB Ulka. It's still there. And for almost 15 years, it was the number 1 client. It was the number 1 client, both in terms of revenue, profits, and in terms of prestige, the kind of work we did on Indica, Indigo, Vista, Manza, the variety of cars. So fortunately, very often what you do is when you get rejected, you blame the other guy, saying, Hyundai was very biased, they didn't like us, they preferred someone whom they knew from before, etc., etc. You can easily blame the other party for your problem, but that's wrong. You need to have a rejection processing system, which is what I write about, which is dispassionate. You got to take the ownership for the rejection on yourself. There may be something true. It is possible that, the person is slightly biased against you. That's not in your control. You're not going to solve that problem, right? It's better to say that, look, what can I do to process the rejection better? And once you do that, the next rejection, you'll not have another rejection, or even if you have another rejection, you'll probably be able to handle it even better.
So, what seems to be emerging from what you're saying is rejection, which we see as failure, is to process it. It's not about falling down; it's about failing to get up. Really,
Yeah.
I mean, you have to make that effort to get up. Now, you have given us some instances from business, from your own life, but your book is interestingly not just focused on the business and corporate sphere. Can you talk us through a couple of instances of non-business people who processed rejection well, who handled it well, and then went forward to achieve great things? Maybe
Okay.
a
So
scientist, sports person, someone on those lines.
yeah. So let me talk about. We spoke about VC. We spoke about a startup. We spoke about my own thing. Let me completely go away now, right? When I mentioned the name Jeffrey Archer, when I mentioned the name J.K. Rowling, when I mentioned the name Amish, who's again a Westland author and a good friend, or Jack Cranfield, all the viewers here may think, yeah, these are best-selling authors. They write and the books sell. But the truth is, Jeffrey Archer's Not a Penny More, Not a Penny Less was rejected by 16 publishers, right, before he found a publisher who could take a risk on publishing that book. Or J.K. Rowling was rejected by 12 publishers. Jack Cranfield was rejected by 144 publishers. I didn't know so many publishers existed, Karthik. And Amish was rejected by so many publishers that he decided to publish the book himself with his literary agent, right? So, what makes these creative people continue to believe in their work and to publish? And there's an interesting story from Stephen King's life. Stephen King, of course, is a guy who created the genre of horror, right? Horror books. Now, he was living in a trailer park and teaching English in a school when he was trying to write his book, and he was getting rejected again and again and again. So he tells a story about how he was one day writing in the morning, and then he wrote about 10 pages and he didn't like it. He took out the pages from his typewriter, threw it into the waste paper basket, and went for a walk. His wife picked up those 10 pages, read the 10 pages. And when he came back from his walk, she said, "Stephen, sit down. This is your book. Write it." And he said, "Yeah, it's your book, right?" So he wrote that book, and that book became Carrie, which is a multi-million seller. The thing
And a
is,
famous movie.
yeah, exactly. It became a big movie as well. The point is, these guys authors have all faced rejection, but they've had a tremendous inner faith in what they were doing, and probably they had someone behind them. In the case of Stephen King, it was his wife who told him, "This is a good book. Someone will pick it up. Don't worry." Probably J.K. Rowling had someone behind her, maybe an agent who said, "Don't worry, we'll find a publisher." Same thing with Jeffrey Archer. He may have had someone advising him, saying, "Don't worry." So all authors today whom we think are selling millions of books have all faced rejection. That's a rejection story from an author. So now let me give two others, very different, from different fields. One is Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Now everyone thinks Dr. Kalam was a genius and everything he touched was a success, and he did rockets, he did nuclear, this, that, he became president. Not at all. Now, Dr. Abdul Kalam writes in his autobiography how SLV-1, Satellite Launch Vehicle 1, which was launched on 10th of August 1979, went up. And you know how many minutes it took to come down? It came down in less than 7 minutes, right? So he was devastated. This is the first big attempt India was making. He was devastated. And when you get rejected and you have failure, you have your inner critic, telling you, "Arey, Kalam, you don't know enough. You should not have, been the head of this mission. You're incompetent. This was bound to happen, etc. So he was going through that inner gnawing of his innards. But he was lucky. He had Professor Satish Dhawan as his boss. And Professor Dhawan said, look, Dr. Kalam, yes, it is a failure. Now you go home. I will handle the media. I will handle Delhi. I will handle all the reporting I'll do. Don't worry. So he went up to media and he said that, look, this is a failure. We will learn from this failure and we will do it better next time. Sorry. And that's it. And he kept Dr. Kalam away from media. So Dr. Kalam could overcome his, inner critic. And then when SLV 2 was sent up on 18th of July, 1980, it was a success. At this time, Satish Dhawan, I'm such a large-hearted man. Professor Satish Dhawan told Dr. Kalam, you now go and face the media. You go and tell them what you did. And that gave Dr. Kalam, and Dr. Kalam talks about, how lucky he was to have someone like Professor Satish Dhawan as his, as his mentor and as his boss. So Dr. Kalam went and talked to the media, and then he became a media darling. And then, of course, as they say, the rest is history. So someone like Dr. Kalam, whom we think is a genius, and you'd always had successes, have had failures, right? So we looked at authors, we looked at scientists like Kalam, and let's look at sports. Now, Geet Sethi is a world champion, a snooker player, writes about this in his book. In 1998, what happened to Rahul Dravid in 1998? Now today we all worship Rahul Dravid. He's complete. He's a kind of a champion cricketer. Many accolades. But in 1998, Dravid was dropped from the one-day Indian team. He was dropped, and Geet Sethi says he met Dravid in the Krantivira Stadium early morning. And it was literally a few days or a few weeks after he was dropped. What was Dravid doing there? Dravid had a personal trainer, and he was, the personal trainer was throwing big bags of cement, and Rahul Dravid was on his back, coming up and picking up the cement. So Geet Sethi got to talk to him, said, what are you doing? So Rahul Dravid said, I need to strengthen my upper body muscle. So I've been practicing here. So imagine, this guy was a great player and he gets dropped from the Indian cricket team. He doesn't cry. He doesn't go to media. He doesn't run to Delhi. He doesn't go to some godfather to help. No, he's back in the stadium practicing, getting his strength back up. And what happens in 1999? He was once again taken into the Indian cricket team. He played the World Cup. India didn't do well, but he turned out to be the highest run getter in that World Cup, right? And a year earlier, he was dropped, right? So he was, that's ultimate form of rejection. So, for the purpose of the book, I spent time talking to Viren Resquina, who is the former Indian Olympic hockey captain and also the CEO of
Olympic Gold Quest.
Yeah. And he said, look, it's only in sports that losing a match is not a permanent black mark, because you win some, you lose some. So there is he made an interesting statement. He said, in sports, you always say that tomorrow sun will rise, right? It's not that sun is not going to rise tomorrow. So if sun is going to rise tomorrow, then you also have to be in the field practicing, which I think Rahul Dravid demonstrated it so well that he was back in the field practicing literally a few days after he was dropped. I mean, someone else would have been sulking in his house, or cursing someone or running to some godfather. He was not doing any of that, right? It's a great example of how to face rejection.
Now, I'm reminded of Gone with the Wind and Scarlett O'Hara, who always says tomorrow is another day, right? I think That
That book,
message
yeah,
seems to be coming through very strongly from your, from whatever you're saying. That
yeah,
yes,
in
you
fact,
are going to be rejected. Yes, things are going to be difficult for you, but then you just have to move on. You just have to, make it work for you. Now,
absolutely.
this is something I've read, and I wanted to get your view on this. Some people say, fake it till you make it. What do you think, coming, given your years of experience in industry and in other places? Does this uh, does this kind of motto, "fake it till you make it," does it make sense to you? Would you recommend it to people?
I would not recommend fake it till you make it, but I think you have to have the the conviction that you can do it, right? So
Hmm.
if you call it
Self
fake it,
belief.
yeah, you have to have the mental belief. You, whenever you get into any situation, you got to have the mental belief that you have it in you to win, right? I mean,
Right.
you have the famous story of Cortez, right, who went to conquer Mexico, and then what did he do? He burnt the bridges. So the Spaniards, you know, did not have an option to go home. So they had to go, they had to conquer, and they had to live there. That may be extreme, but but you have to, when you enter a battle, you got to enter the battle to win. However, there is at the back of your mind, there has to be a plan B and maybe even a plan C, right? So that if in case you face rejection, you should be able to then pick up a second plan and implement it. Now, the problem is, it can't be faking it, but if you fake it, the other party will make out, today you can make out when someone is faking and when someone is seriously competent or confident in a story. So you will get caught out. So I would strongly recommend, don't practice what
Not
Karthik is
faking it.
faking till you make it, all that. A little bit dangerous.
Sure. Now, like I was telling the audience early on when introducing you, you're a consultant, you are a regular columnist, you teach at business schools, and as you've told all of us, you have written 10 books. So that's a lot. What's your work schedule like? How do you find the time amidst all your other things to write these books? What is the writing or the creative process that you follow?
Yeah, so thanks, Karthik. I think, when I was working full time, you know, um, Monday to Saturday, you always, you're available to talk to clients, meet clients, chasing new business, etc. So my schedule Monday to Saturday used to be packed, but I almost always kept 3-4 hours every Sunday for writing, right? So either I'm doing research or I'm writing. So every book takes about 2 years. So first 1 year is research, where you collect all the bits and pieces you need. Research could be reading a book or reading an article, creating folders, files, all that stuff. That takes a year. And then you spend a year every Sunday, almost religiously, 2 hours or 3 hours sitting and writing. And if you don't have that discipline, I know a lot of very bright people who should be writing books, but don't get into the discipline of writing. So every Sunday I used to write, but now I don't have a 9 to 5 job. I can write any day. I can write almost every day, uh, but I make sure every week at least I write a fair bit. Which is either a column or something else or some future research. Something. So you ought to get into that discipline. People say that, look, fiction is a little different. I'm told, and Karthik, you deal with them, but fiction, I'm told, you have to write every day. That's how the story progresses. In non-fiction, you don't need to do that. Once you got your broad research done, you've structured the book, you can actually come in once every 2-3 days or even once every week and write. Okay, and then you can then polish it and and keep it together. I'm told in fiction, some famous authors actually, they say they write 3,000 words a day. Out of that, 2,000 words are rewriting what they wrote the previous day. In non-fiction, we don't need to follow that discipline. But yeah, it's you have to have a discipline. Otherwise, you're not going to succeed in writing.
Right. I'm going to throw the floor open for questions now. But as we wait for the questions, I'm just going to start with asking one question which has already come up, which is in the process of creating this book, or maybe one or two of your earlier books, something surprising that you came across, something unexpected that you discovered, that kind of blew your mind and you didn't expect to come across this. Anything you can think of?
This book I said, right, because I didn't know that this rejection and facing rejection is such a sensitive topic. I didn't realize that young people, especially in the age group of say 20 to 35, are so worried about rejection. And I think when I thought about it, I realized that our generation, which is, I'm saying, Karthik, you're slightly younger, but people who are in their 50s and 60s have gone through a lot of up and down. We've gone through wars, we've gone through recession, we've gone through huge unemployment. Some of us have actually been through the emergency period, where we could have been arrested, etc., etc. So, but the current generation for the last 30 years has been rather smooth ride. I mean, the debate is not about getting a job. The debate is about this year increment kitna hoga. 10% hoga to kam hai, 15 to chahiye. That is something which is not something someone who's 60 years will say. No, there have been years you've gone without an increment. There have been years you had to take a salary cut. There have been, I've written about it in the other book, there have been policies saying we will not travel by business class, right? We will not stay in a 5-star hotel. We will not hire a cab from the hotel. We will always use the local transport, right? These are things we had to go through, but in the last maybe 15 years, things have gone a little lax. And now the problem is the young people are hitting the wall now, right? Suddenly there is wholesale salary cuts. There is wholesale, forget about increment. I mean, I was talking to someone who was coaching.
Jobs are on the line.
Yeah, and it was the guy who was coaching, very senior executive. So he said he went and told his team, a fairly senior people, saying, this year no increment. And the team said, no increment. So he had to make them sit down. I said, guys, please remember, you could all get sacked. The company is being extremely kind to you that, we are going with no increment, right? So this whole thing, I think, is the whole hitting the wall, job losses, salary cuts has been a huge problem, right? And I think somewhere maybe the book will help some of these people to find inner courage to face this and get on with the future. So that whole
thing
what
you seem to be saying is some amount of adversity in one's life is not necessarily a bad thing. Adversity brings or builds in you some kind of resilience, some kind of openness to finding solutions to tough problems rather than sitting back, and enjoying the ride. Am I right when I say that? I mean, you would welcome, not exactly welcome, but you would say adversity is something that everyone must go through. It's not something that
I
should be without life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think absolutely right, Karthik, because I think we have to be ready to welcome rejection. Now, if you look at academics, in the academic world, when you're going through to get your PhD, you have to get your paper published. The papers are sent to leading conferences or leading publications, right? There they send it to some peer review guy. That peer review three people, and they can reject your paper. And if they reject it, they give reason why they reject it. If they accept it, they give 2 lines saying it's interesting, they accept it, right? So a lot of PhD scholars get very disheartened saying, look, my 3rd paper has been rejected, my 4th paper is rejected. But the smarter people realize that the rejection actually is a stepping stone to improving the paper, becoming even better. So someone did an analysis, he's a professor in the US, he did an analysis of the 20 papers he has published in the last, say, 3 years. 13 of them got accepted first shot, right? 7 of them were rejected once, twice, thrice. But he's found out the papers which win awards in conferences were all those papers which got rejected the first time, right? So if you get a paper through, he says, now I am hoping that it gets rejected. I don't want paper to go through. I want to get rejected because I know that if it gets rejected, I can then add more value and it will become an even better paper. So I'm saying that what is rejection? Rejection means that you are trying to, go to an area which is not your comfort zone, right? To play a different game. You're trying to play a different game and you will get rejected, which is fine, right? But you got to realize how to handle it. And in my book, I've explained the process, which is how do you face the rejection? How do you process the rejection? And how do you learn from the rejection? As long as you have that ready, I think you should be ready to accept rejection, not get scared. And also, if you've not been rejected in projects, you've not been rejected, you've not tried hard enough. You're not tried to fly, right? Only when you try to fly will you fall. If you keep crawling on the earth, you'll keep crawling all your life. But someone said, no, we will fly. And he attached wings and all that. And he tried flying and he collapsed. And he tried again. And then finally he actually flew for 5 seconds, right? So everyone who succeeded, whether it is the Wright brothers or Thomas Alva Edison, Walt Disney, everyone has had to face failure and rejection. So if you've not been rejected, if you're not failed, right, which means you're leading a pretty boring life. You need to rethink. You need to get out of your comfort zone and then do something different.
Okay, now Priya Iyer has a very interesting question. All the people you have spoken about have become popular eventually, while most of us will only be fairly successful or barely so. So therefore, is our definition of success too lofty?
I think it's a very, very good question, and you may, you may well ask, you write about J.K. Rowling, you write about, Amish, you write about Jeffrey Archer. Why don't they are very big authors? Why don't you write about someone smaller? But obviously, I'm writing about these people because someone like Priya knows them. There is no point in my writing about, say, a Tamil author called Jayakanta. You will not know him. You will not even identify with him. So all I'm saying is, how do you define success? Success doesn't necessarily mean that you sell 1 million books, right? Success means you found your comfort zone, you found your flow, and you achieved what you set out to achieve, right? So that success could mean getting your first book published. I mean, that itself is success, right? So yesterday I was watching this little video snippet of Ashwin, player, R. Ashwin interviewing this guy who bowls Yorkers all the time. What's his name?
Malinga?
No, this is an Indian player who played yesterday. He took 3 wickets.
Okay. Natarajan,
right? Nattu. Now, Nattu is from a small village near Salem. He has only played with a tennis ball till he was 20. So Ashwin was asking him, Nattu, what was your dream? He said, my dream was one day I will play for Tamil Nadu. That was my dream, because till 20 years, he didn't know what a cricket ball looked like.
Felt like, right.
He's never felt it, right? And he said, I had this, again, we talk about rejection processing system, we talk about mentors. He had a mentor called Jairaj. That mentor, and the family was so poor, they didn't have money to pay his uh, his tuition fees to send him to a college. And he did not get good marks in his 12th. So Jairaj said, look, he told the family, leave this boy to me. I will train him. And this guy said, I did everything my mentor told me. And then my goal was, I came to Chennai. He said, I've never been to Chennai, till he took me, to Chennai. And I started playing in 4th division in Chennai. Now, for him, that was big, right? It was success. And he says, look, my big achievement was getting into Tamil Nadu team. Then I got into an IPL team. And then now I'm playing for India. I can't, but now I'm doing this. I'm happy I'm doing it, and I want to do more of it, So look at that. Look at that. So he defined success, and he kept changing his definition of success. Every one of us should define success at one level. And once you achieve that success, you need to say, okay, what is my next definition of success? What is my next definition of success? The moment you say, yeah, I'm successful, and now I put up my legs, then you're over. Game is over. Then you might as well retire, right? But you ought to keep moving your yardstick of success. And that's how you will grow, and you will find happiness, So, happiness also has a bit of kind of what do you call, you become happy only if you had tasted disappointment and rejection. So
another interesting question now, and this is something I had in my mind as well. Niyati Bhatt says, great session. What would you suggest to the new generation that is facing the 2020 post-lockdown job market adversity? What would your advice be to them?
Okay, so this is a simple something which I'm a adjunct professor at SPJMR, and Dean Ranjan Banerjee had this very interesting advice. So he said, look, when you enter the job market, let's say March, April, May next year, one of the questions which most HR people will ask is, what did you do last year? Right? You were sitting at home, right? What did you do last year? So be ready with a story. So which means, say that, look, I attended these three, I attended college from home, but I also did this. I attended these 2 certification programs. Now I know Python programming, or I've done a certification program on digital marketing. I've done a certification program on activity-based costing, So be ready with that. So say that, look, how you used those 9 months or 1 year to actually improve yourself. You might have learned Sanskrit, for example, or you might have learned, algorithmic trading. But what have you learned? And so you have to be ready with an answer of what you've done, how you used the lockdown, how you used the learning from home, working from home, as not as a negative, but as a positive, right? If you do that, and of course, listen, I mean, there is going to be pressure, right? Job market is going to be tight. And so in America, they've done actually this research that people who enter the job market during a downturn, and let me tell Niyati this, Niyati, this is true. I'm not making it up. They've done analysis of, for the last 100 years, let's say undergrads entering the job market, and they've said, what kind of salaries do they get, etc., etc. What they found is that people who enter the job market during a downturn turn out to be happier in their long-term life. So they've done this survey of people who enter, the job market during a boom year, during a, depression, during recession, and they've monitored their happiness level over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 years. And they say, look, if you enter the job market during a boom year, let's say 10 years later, your happiness quotient is 50. But if you enter the job market in a recession year,
Difficult year.
after 10 years, your happiness quotient is actually 90 because you've gone through that, what they call tempering by iron. And therefore, you are so much prepared to face the challenges of the future. So I know I might be giving a positive spin to this, but this is true. It's not my story. You can Google it. It's a research. It's a published research.
Last question for the day. We don't have too much time left. Shweta Bhagat's question: sponge, spring, what next?
Well, I don't know. When I wrote Sponge, I didn't know I was going to write Spring, and when I'm writing Spring, I don't have an idea what I'm going to do next. But broadly, I think I'll come back to the domain of branding. So there are some few ideas I'm working with. I'll come back to branding. I'll come back to my comfort zone. Both Sponge and Spring were somewhat a little far away from what I know more about, which is branding and advertising and all that. So I'll probably come back to where I'm more comfortable, which is the branding space. So hopefully something in branding will come in the next year and a half or so. That's a broad plan. Thank you.
Right. One last question, if I might. Anything that you've read in the last month or two that you found particularly interesting, which you would recommend? A book, an article, something else?
Oh yeah, because of this lockdown and all that, I've been reading books like crazy. There's a little, I made actually got my book list here. What I've been reading. So let me just check out something for you, which I thought was okay. This is an advertising book, so I'll not recommend that. Right, and where is this? I read Marketing 4.0 by Kotler, which was an amazingly good book. Very, 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 very good book. And then, of course, I read John Grisham. And I'm looking forward to reading a book on one of my favorite brands, Royal Enfield. So, Birth of an Icon, right? That's a book I'm looking forward to reading. But I've been averaging, I just started reading a book called To Sell is Human by Daniel Pink. I'm halfway through that. It's really wonderful. I'm looking forward to finishing it and then picking up, something else. So at any point of time, I'm juggling a couple of books and looking forward to reading some good fiction. Two books I read were a little disappointing, fiction books. But there was another wonderful book I read. I don't know, there was a Westland book, but I read a book called Tiny Habits. Very nice, very, very nice. So, I have read probably, Courtesan and the Mahatma.
By Manu Pillai.
Manu Pillai, yeah, that was really nice. Yeah. So thank you, Karthik. I think.
So just a reminder to everyone, this is the book, Spring. Maybe Ambi, you could hold it up as well. This is the book that we were talking about. Ambi has just given you a very, 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 very small sample of the riches that are in this book. Those of you who joined us today, do buy this book, read it. I'm sure it will help you in many, many different ways. So thank you, Ambi, for joining us today. A special thanks to the folks at Kalinga Literature Festival for inviting us over. I do hope you enjoyed listening to this as much as I enjoyed hosting this conversation. Kalinga Literary Festival is doing lots of interesting work, organizing all kinds of conversations. So please do follow their social media pages. Please do tune in for more and more interesting conversations. Have a great Sunday, all of you. Thank you, Ambi. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Karthik. Thank you, Literary Festival, for hosting this. Thank you, viewers for joining us. Thank you very much.